Hello, and welcome to our Government Crash Course video.
Unit 1, Comparative Governments. So there are two main forms of government that are important to know as a U.S. citizen because they pertain the most to the U.S. government today. So these are a democracy, which gives power to the people, whether directly or through elected representatives, and a republic, where citizens elect representatives who will work on their behalf.
Unit 2, Roots of American Democracy. There are two main documents that you should know, one being the Articles of Confederation. This was used to establish the national government's responsibilities and functions. However, it did not last long because it caused economic problems. It also caused economic depression, which led to Shays' Rebellion. This represented the inability to maintain law and order within the country. After these rebellions were over, Alexander Hamilton created the convention to replace the Articles of Confederation with the Constitution in 1787. The Constitution is a set of rules that guides the country and the people. It also led to the creation of Congress and the improvement of the legislative branch. The Constitution is important to know because it explains the guidelines of our country and government today. The Declaration of Independence states that people have a say in government and marks the birth of the United States.
Unit 3, the three branches of the federal government. So these are the legislative branch, which is Congress and writes laws, the executive branch, which is the president and proposes laws, and the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court and interprets the Constitution and other laws. So these have a separation of powers which prevent one branch from becoming supreme. And they are also called checks and balances, which are shown by the arrows, which is a system that allows one branch to limit the other branches and prevent tyranny in our government today. But overall, these three branches show how the government is effective and how people's rights are protected. Congress. So Congress is basically the legislative branch and is composed of the House of Representatives and the Senate. So these are both directly elected by the people, and they each have different roles and powers. For example, the House of Representatives must have a majority vote to impeach so that the Senate can remove an impeached official at trial with a 2/3 vote. So Congress is the only place that can make laws, so this allows people to understand the extensive impact it has on the country. The President. So the President is basically from the executive branch and is selected by the Electoral College. A job of theirs is to be a crisis manager, and one of their powers is their military power, where they act as a commander-in-chief. So the president and its jobs and powers are important to know because he or she is the head of government and therefore has a significant impact on the U.S. Moving on, the Supreme Court is basically from the judicial branch and has a process of choosing the case first, then hearing and deciding the case, and announcing and implementing a decision for the case. So the Supreme Court overall plays a very important role in our government because it outlines the broad legal and political significance of people's actions.
Unit 4, Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. There are three main amendments that one should know. One being the First Amendment, freedom of speech, press, assembly, and petition. The Second Amendment protects the right to keep or bear arms. Next is the 14th Amendment, which is equal protection under the laws. This is important because it outlines the basic rights for a person and allows people to use their voice, to state their opinions publicly, and to publish them without the government stopping them. Next, specifically, the 14th Amendment is important to know because it states that people are equal, especially in rights and opportunities. Now moving on to the citizenship rights. There are two different types of citizenships, one being the native-born citizen and one being the immigrant. Next, one can give up their citizenship by leaving the United States and becoming a citizen in another country. They can also lose their citizenship by committing a crime, for example, fraud in the naturalization process. This is important to know because this is a frequently asked question when applying for colleges or going to the Secretary of State. Also, knowing how they can lose their citizenship is very helpful.
Unit 5, Political Identities, specifically ideologies. So first off, we have the liberals, who are the political left, and they tend to vote for the Democratic Party. Liberals usually favor an extensive governmental involvement. Next off, we have conservatives, who are the political right and tend to vote for the Republican Party. Conservatives believe that the best government governs less and that big governments can only infringe on individual, personal, and economic rights. So, political ideologies are important to know because they tend to line up with a certain political party. And citizens need to know this information in order to vote for leaders who represent them and their ideas. Political influences. So what are they? They're basically factors that contribute to how you think politically. And these factors include family, gender, religion, race and ethnicity, and also the region that you grow up in. So families are generally the first and most enduring influences. And political influences are important to know because everyone needs to recognize how their environment has influenced them and be able to look into the other perspective and look into their biases. Knowing how to vote, mail-in votes. So every state allows for mail-in voting. However, some states only allow it under certain circumstances, such as COVID-19. Before voting on election day, you should find your assigned voting place, find out whether or not an ID is needed in your state. This varies from state to state. And then look at voter guides providing background information on candidates and ballot measures. And the U.S. has many requirements in order to vote, but you should also know that you also have to meet the state's residency requirements and be registered to vote. Knowing how to vote is important because it gives people the ability to have their own voices heard on how they want this country to be governed by its leaders.
The outside topic. So our outside topic is polling, which is a means to access public opinion on issues or a candidate. So some three main political polls are push polls, which are desired to get a specific response out of people, tracking polls, which gives information on where candidates stand compared to others, and exit polls, which gauge voter choices. So polls are significant in analyzing the public's viewpoints on certain issues, which can be helpful to political campaigns as well as presidents as they try to persuade the public about their key issues like education or healthcare. Now, these are our works cited. Thank you so much for your attention.